On a torrential rainy night, when Wan, an ordinary jewelry designer, curled up listlessly on the sofa at home. She intended to send a message to her best friend to ask about the rain condition on her friend's side. She casually typed the sentence, "Is it heavy over there?" and then sent a voice message, complaining about the extremely dry weather recently and the peeling skin on her face. She rambled in the voice that the dry weather was incredibly refreshing and satisfying, releasing all the discomfort brought by dryness. However, after sending the message, she was horrified to find that she had sent it to Ji Hui Yan by mistake instead of her best friend. Ji Hui Yan was the supreme boss of their group, a legendary figure in the business world. He possessed peerless good looks but maintained an icy and indifferent temperament all year round. Known for his iron-blooded means and unyielding ruthlessness in the workplace, he made senior supervisors panic and lose their jobs with just a single cold glance at company meetings. He was aloof and distant, never putting on perfunctory smiles, and the atmosphere would turn freezing and oppressive whenever he appeared in public. As an ordinary employee, Wan had always kept a respectful distance from him and never dared to have any excessive contact. Panic surged through Wan in an instant. She frantically tried to withdraw the wrong message, yet Ji Hui Yan replied in just a split second. His reply was cold and concise. "Who did this?" Soon after, another forceful message popped up on the chat interface, ordering her to send her specific address immediately without delay. When Wan's mind buzzed and completely collapsed, she was filled with endless despair, thinking that her career and even her whole life would be ruined because of this ridiculous mistake. The ambiguous wording of her text and the special intonation of her casual voice message were extremely misleading in that context. She was convinced that her old and rigid boss would regard her as a perverted employee who deliberately harassed her superior, and she might be fired on the spot, or even face more serious consequences. Her fingers trembled violently, making it impossible for her to type a proper explanation. Trapped in overwhelming anxiety, she even had the absurd idea of throwing her phone into the toilet to destroy all evidence. Ji Hui Yan sent a single question mark which carried overwhelming pressure, urging her to obey immediately. Completely intimidated when Wan chose to surrender, to avoid being secretly investigated by the powerful president, she tremblingly sent her community location to him. After sending the positioning, she collapsed on the sofa, her soul seemingly leaving her body. She numbly began to plan for the worst, preparing to take the initiative to resign or wait for the dismissal notice from the HR department. The rain outside the window grew heavier, with thunder roaring constantly. She hugged a soft cushion and huddled into a small ball on the sofa, waiting helplessly for the unknown trial brought by her old boss. After a long period of drowsiness, the doorbell suddenly rang sharply in the quiet night. Startled, when Wan jumped up in alarm, she tiptoed to the door and peered through the cat's eye. Under the dim corridor induction lamp, Ji Hui Yan's tall and straight figure stood quietly outside the door. He wore a well-tailored black suit without an umbrella, with wet hair tips and shoulders covered with fine water mist, though looking a little messy from the heavy rain. His imposing aura remained unmatched. The cold president she feared the most had actually come to her home in the middle of a stormy night. Her heart pounded wildly, and she froze in place, too scared to move an inch. After 2 more urgent doorbells, she took a deep breath, summoned up all her courage, and twisted the doorknob to open the door. Hui Yan stood at the doorway, with deep shadows falling on his sharpened 3-dimensional facial features under the dim light. Water droplets slid down his perfect jawline, soaking his expensive shirt. His dark eyes were deep and unfathomable, just like the rough sea in the stormy night. When Wan stammered out his title in a trembling voice, completely intimidated by his presence, he kept silent, staring at her intently, his gaze slowly sweeping over her flustered face, to loose home clothes and bare feet, making her scalp tingle with embarrassment. When Wan hurriedly explained the whole incident in a flustered tone, emphasizing that it was a complete misunderstanding, She had intended to send the message to her best friend with a similar avatar, and the word she used only referred to dry weather and peeling skin, with no ambiguous meaning at all. As she spoke, her voice became weaker and weaker because she noticed that there was no disgust or anger in Ji Huiyan's eyes as she had imagined. Instead, his deep eyes were filled with suppressed and burning emotions that she could not understand. Ji Huiyan took a firm step forward, his tall figure completely enveloping her. When Wan subconsciously stepped back until her back leaned tightly against the cold wall. He slowly raised his well-defined fingers and gently stroked her dry and hot cheek. When Wan stiffened all over, holding her breath nervously, his cool fingertips rubbed gently on her skin, and his deepened hoarse voice vibrated like a cello beside her ear. He said plainly that he had known it was a misunderstanding all along. Before when Wan could recover from her confusion, he leaned down, and warm breath sprayed on her ear tip, triggering a shiver all over her body. He whispered in a low and magnetic tone that he had been waiting for this misunderstanding for a very long time. The moment the words fell, a soft and gentle kiss landed accurately on her lips, mixed with the cool breath of the rainy night. The light kiss was devoid of vulgar desire, yet it was like a surging electric current that broke through all her psychological defenses in an instant. After a short while, Ji Huiyan pulled away slightly, his dark eyes locked firmly on her blushing face, and his thumb gently caressed her numb lips. He asked in a gentle tone if he could come into her house. In a daze, when Wan nodded mechanically and stepped aside to make way for him. After closing the door, the whole world felt illusory and unreal. Duoyan took off his wetsuit jacket and draped it over his arm casually. The white shirt soaked by the rain clung tightly to his strong back, outlining smooth and powerful muscle lines. When Wan could not help swallowing secretly, deeply shocked by his perfect figure. As if hearing her inner thoughts, Ji Huiyan suddenly turned around with a faint and ambiguous smile on his thin lips and asked softly if his figure looked good. When Wan was jolted back to her senses, her face burning red instantly, and she stammered to deny it, he did not press her further. Instead, he walked to the sofa and sat down lazily, crossing his long legs, his gaze always lingering on her. He brought up her previous ambiguous words again, asking in a teasing tone who had made her feel so comfortable and refreshed. Faced with his deliberate provocation, when Wan was so shy that she had nowhere to hide, repeatedly emphasizing that it was just a weather-related complaint, Ji Huiyan raised his eyebrows in amusement, stating that her voice in the message sounded far more ambiguous than a simple complaint about dry weather. He waved at her gently, signaling her to come closer. After a moment of hesitation, when Wan shuffled over slowly, he grabbed her wrist lightly and pulled her gently, causing her to lose balance and fall into his arms. She let out a soft exclamation, subconsciously pressing her hands against his solid chest, clearly feeling his steady and powerful heartbeat beneath the thin shirt. Her heart raced rapidly, and her face was hot enough to burn. Ji Huiyan interrupted her flustered complaints, telling her to stop addressing him as President Ji from then on. He guided her hands gently to the hem of his shirt. Accidentally, her fingertips touched his warm and firm abdominal muscles, making her tremble as if she had been electrocuted. Just as she wanted to pull her hand back in panic, he held her hand tightly to stop her movement. He leaned close to her ear, his voice bewitching and deep, telling her to call him Huiyan directly, or even more intimate nicknames if she wished. In a daze, when Wan asked tentatively what other names she could use, his thin lips brushed her earlobe lightly, dropping a hot whisper, suggesting that she could call him husband. That rainy night, Ji Huiyan maintained full restraint. He did not cross the line or do anything excessive. He just held her tightly in his arms and chatted with her casually. He took the initiative to ask about her hobbies, university major, the original intention of engaging in jewelry design and all trivial little things about her life. Most of the time, he listened quietly to her rambling with gentle patience, completely different from his cold and stern appearance in the workplace. Gradually, when Wan let go of all her tension and unease, falling into a deep sleep in his warm and secure embrace. The next morning, when Wanwan woke up in her soft bed, Ji Hui Yan had left quietly early. A cup of warm water and a delicate note with sharpened, powerful handwriting were placed on the bedside table, left by him. The note reminded her to heat up the breakfast in the refrigerator and meet her at the company. Holding the note, the ambiguous and sweet memories of last night flooded back instantly. She finally confirmed that everything that happened was not a dream. She had mistakenly sent an ambiguous message to the cold president, attracted his special attention, and started an unexpected ambiguous relationship with him. When she returned to the group with a flustered heart, when Wanwan was distracted all day long, in the company, Ji Hui Yan returned to his cold and aloof look, handling work seriously and efficiently, as if the intimate interaction between them on the rainy night had never happened. If not for the embarrassing chat records still saved in her WeChat, she would have suspected that she had an illusion. In the afternoon, she was concentrating on revising her jewelry design draft when the internal phone of the design department rang. The president's secretary informed her to go to the top floor president's office immediately. Her heart sank to the bottom. Thinking that the long-delayed punishment was finally coming, she tidied up her clothes, took a deep breath, and walked towards the top floor with a sense of resignation. The blinds in the spacious president's office were half closed, casting dim soft light. Ji Hui Yan sat behind the huge desk, focusing on reading official documents. He wore a clean white shirt with the top to buttons unbuttoned, revealing his delicate collarbone and fair skin. The sunlight filtered through the gaps of the blinds, coating his whole body with a soft golden halo, highlighting his unparalleled charm. After summoning her in, Ji Huiyan only asked her to deliver legal documents. Just as when Wanwan turned to leave in relief, he stopped her suddenly. He stood up, walked around the desk, and approached her step by step with strong oppressive force. She held her breath nervously. He stopped in front of her, and she could smell the fresh body wash fragrance on his body, which was exactly the same as hers. Before she could react, he reached out his hand, held her waist gently, and pulled her into his arms. When Wanwan was shocked and panicked, knowing that the office door was unlocked and the open office area was just outside the blinds, where colleagues might pass by at any time. She struggled slightly, reminding him that this was a formal workplace. Ji Hui Yan comforted her in a low and reassuring voice that no one could see them. He did not make excessive movements, only holding her waist loosely. But this subtle intimacy was enough to make her heart beat out of control. He teased her deliberately, repeating the coquettish words she said in the voice message that night, making her face burn with shyness. After enjoying her flustered reaction, he let her go gently, picked up the documents that had fallen on the ground, and let her leave. When Wanwan fled out of the office in a panic, lying on her desk, completely overwhelmed by Ji Huiyan's irresistible charm, she realized that the cold president was extremely good at teasing her, easily making her flustered and at a loss.